Yeah, I suppose one of the things with artificial intelligence is making sure we keep track of the numbers. So it's actually only 20 years experience rather than 30. But let's see what we can do here. Mark Stephen Meadows, and I'd also like to point out Thomas Schultz, our director of partnerships here. We just today. Well, I'm happy to announce that Job.com is one of the partners of the Seed Network. So, Thomas, I got that off my back quick. I'll give you a really quick run through here. First off, the graphical user interface has been around for decades. I worked at Xerox PARC in the late 90s, and we were looking at new ways in which interfaces actually affect the way that we interact with data and change the way that we think about data and that interaction itself. And we've seen that there's, in the last 5 or 6 years, a real change in which we're now talking with computers. We no longer are just clicking on buttons and dealing with a page metaphor, but now it's a psychological metaphor in which the personality is there and can understand our voice. Not just understanding our voice, but also understanding the ways in which we say things. So if I say, for example, I love public speaking, that's a lot different than if I say, I love public speaking, because the tone of the voice and the gesture actually provides an enormous amount of data that's very valuable to companies like, for example, Amazon and Alexa. So we're seeing bots. I built my first bot in 2001, and in the last 16 years, we've seen a range of different natural language processing systems that are now being also coupled with voice modalities, such as text-to-speech and automated speech recognition, which allow things like assistants such as Alexa, Siri, Cortana, and the like. And in the last 8 to 9 years, we've been developing systems that also, for Microsoft and other customers, run on systems like Skype. So you can talk with a character, and the character can see you, and that character, that avatar, is a part of a graphical user interface. So these are video bots. And one of the problems that we've begun to notice is that these are sort of like orchestras in which you have the natural language processing and the automated speech recognition and the real-time 3D and computer vision all working together. And so bots are now evolving into something that really requires many different types of technology and different levels of expertise to be built properly. So bots are this front end that sits on top of many different kinds of AI, whether it's computer vision or natural language processing in the back end. The bot landscape to date has been quite fractured, and the frameworks that are out there have lacked a standards model. And so there's also this problem of trust. How many of you have a Facebook account, please? One hand up. All right, and a second hand up for Google, please. Right, okay, so this, in your case, sir, is worth roughly $300 a month, $150 per account. And in some accounts, it's about a quarter of a penny. In other cases, or it can be worth several $1,000s. So we recognize that in order for bots to absorb all of this data about who the end user is, and also to then remunerate the end users of that bot, we want to identify who's contributing which data, whether they're a developer or an end user, and that allows the bot development community to better not only monetize open source, but to also work collaboratively. So here's an example of something we did. This is from Microsoft on Skype. There's Andy, a multimodal bot, able to work as a chat bot, as an assistant, and as a video bot. And then this is also a number of other builds. And we really tried to make sure that in these bots, we're avoiding what's called the uncanny valley. So if we're building conversational interfaces, we need to recognize that systems like Alexa will, as they're doing now, begin taking pictures of us, but also we're going to be seeing faces appearing on these systems. And this is an example of just some of the specific types of natural language processing, automated speech recognition, text-to-speech, and the other kinds of libraries that require curation on the back end. Now, we're finding that the ways in which people collect data and the ways in which companies in particular are asking people to collect data are curiously insidious. So Pokemon Go comes out, and building avatars, I was interested in understanding whether or not the Pokemon could talk. I download the app, and the app began to ask for OAuth level permissions on my phone, which sort of surprised me because I didn't know why an app would need to be able to send an email as Mark Stephen Meadows. So I traced this back upstream, and I find out that, in fact, Pokemon Go is being published by a company named Niantic. And Niantic was 60% owned by Google. And everyone that was out in the street hunting for Pokemon were actually using their cell phones to collect real-time 3D data of the real world, which is being sent back to Google to contribute to Project Tango, which is their real-world 3D data set. So augmented reality is probably the single most surveillance system that's out there. It has immense capabilities because it not only needs to know what is around you and where you are and when, but it has to be able to represent that back to you. And so as we build augmented reality characters that you can talk with and virtual reality characters you can talk with, we have to recognize that the value of the end user data is going to be much more than what we currently see Facebook or Google collecting. By the way, this is why Zuckerberg went out and bought these VR and AR companies, is because they need to be able to collect more end user data. So we're saying, if this stuff is so valuable, why is it that Mark Zuckerberg is collecting all of the value, monetizing that data, and then selling it? Doesn't it make more sense socioeconomically for us to take the value of that data and via open source models allow people to then get paid for that data themselves? So I'm leaving Baidu, Tencent, and Alibaba out of the picture here. But if we look at the two most powerful AI systems in the West, Google and Facebook are undeniably the most powerful because we've provided them with our data. And over the years, they've been able to build better and better systems. But we need to make sure that as AI is making decisions for us about where to drive, what to buy, how to take care of our health, what to eat, what the weather is, what to wear, that we can trust it. AI has to be trusted. It has to be open source. And it cannot be owned just by a handful of companies that are, for example, based in the Bay Area, where I happen to have grown up more or less. So the bot market itself is something that is expected to grow dramatically. We will be speaking with our computers more and more, and as somebody that helped to develop the third.com website back in 1993, I see the conversational interface as being something that's going to grow much faster and much larger than the graphical user interface has. And we're going to see artificial intelligence as having a very disruptive effect on not only the displacement of jobs and our data and the ways we make decisions, but also governments and governance itself. And this paradigm shift is so important that if we don't pay attention to what's happening and we don't recognize how these massive libraries of data are being built and how, in fact, these systems are being used to affect our decisions, we may run into some real big problems. Not only a bifurcation of the internet, as Eric Schmidt recently predicted, in which we'll have a Chinese version of the internet and a Western version of the internet, but in fact, it may be that systems like Facebook have a lot more control over us than we think. Facebook knows how you're feeling, and it knows how to change the way you feel. And if you don't believe me, just do a research on some 2015 papers that they released, or come talk to me afterwards. So the issue has to do with control. It has to do with a fair compensation for our data that we give to these large organizations, and also ultimately with governments. These three problem sets that artificial intelligence has produced and that we've discovered over the last 20 years, thank you, Ryan, is that blockchain curiously provides solutions to these. Blockchain allows trust, reputation, and transparency, and also a viable economy for an open source ecosystem. We have not had that before. Jimmy Wales, that started Wikipedia, had a great idea. Maybe Mark Zuckerberg also had a great idea, but both of these systems have skewed economic models. Blockchain helps us fix that. Blockchain also helps us build partnerships. with companies that are very similar to ours. So Botchain, Fetch, Ocean, SingularityNet, these are partners of Seeds. And again, Thomas, thank you. As of today, Job.com and over 800 other companies have joined us to be partners and developers within this ecosystem. We have 15,000 individual developers that have also signed up to join us. And so what we're saying is, okay, look, contribute the data that you have either as an end user or as a library provider. Provide us also with a vertical use case, whether it's Job.com or dental chat or finance or healthcare or travel or thousands of other different vertical applications, and let's build this stuff together via interoperable AI systems. The Seed ecosystem itself is built such that on the right we have users who might want to very much control their private data. They might say, it's a healthcare use case, I do not want this data to be shared, and so they can pay for that privacy. Or it might be somebody transversely who would say, you know what, I want to get paid, I don't care about privacy, use my data, and then give me a couple pennies for this stuff. Maybe it's 150 bucks a month, maybe more, maybe less, depending on the use case. And then within the core part of the ecosystem, analysts, deployers, advertisers, and developers have a role by which they can build bots, very much like we see Amazon Alexa in the assistant example. The Alexa Skills Store is an ecosystem, but it is not open source. And also the most valuable data that Alexa collects, which is the affect or emotional data, is not being shared with developers of the skill sets. So we said, no. Amazon needs to do this in a different way. And not only Amazon Alexa for assistance, but also multimodal bots, such as video bots and AR and VR bots. So that's an overview of Seed Token, and I hope, Ryan, I've been quick enough here that we can get us back up to speed. Please join us. Please send me an email. We are on a private, it's our second private round of sales, so looking for some investment, and we're also looking for folks that can just pitch in and help by testing things out on the weekends. So please shoot me a note, and thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark.